I am going to do the pacing again. All right. Hopefully the camera gets me. Maybe I'll be outside the camera. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. I got to do a little longer now. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, I was hoping to mark off 40 feet, but this is a little bit narrower than 40 feet. Some scholars think that some of the stones on the temple are at least 40 feet long. Can you imagine that? I would imagine if they're 40 feet long, they'd have enough depth to it so they don't crack. Now, when this building was built, didn't they have teams of horses, like with ropes all the way across Main Street to try to build this structure? I can't imagine. Not the technology, but how they're able to do that. And here we are, over 100 years later. Still the same building, still strong, still good. We maintain it well. This could last for a little while longer, don't you think? Built to last. Well, that's what they thought about the temple in Jesus' time. It took a long time, not 10, 20, maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 years to build. And all of a sudden, it was destroyed in a war, a Jewish uprising with the Roman government. The Romans came and kind of squashed. I'm trying to think of how they would knock these 40-foot stones down. I can't fathom that. What it took to get the stones one on top of the other and then how to knock those things down. I would think it'd be pretty impenetrable. It's like the Titanic, right? Impenetrable. Well, not really. All things can be destroyed. Things come to an end. The disciples were awed by this temple, this great structure. And sometimes they failed to see what was going on inside of the temple. Some of the things that, last week we talked about the widow that gave 2 pennies and the scribes were walking around as they were above everybody else. And how sometimes the temple turned a little bit and took advantage of the poor, the widows, the orphans, and those who couldn't afford it, so they could keep up their structures, of their facades of greatness, not any longer helping the poor who they were meant to help. The disciples saw the physical structure, and that's what they saw. And then Jesus said, hey, it's all going to fall, it's all going to crash. He was talking not only the building itself, but metaphorically, this tradition that they had is going to fall. This Roman rule is going to fall, and it eventually did. The temple fell. The tradition was scattered throughout the countryside. Synagogues sprung up throughout the lands, and the faith continued on. Sometimes when you go to kill ants in your house, right, you spray the ants. You go to the hardware store, you get some spray. You spray them and you think, they're dead. Sometimes communities under stress react just the opposite. They produce even more, and pretty soon you got more ants than you could ever want. It's not like saying we're ants, or the Jewish people are ants, but you get the metaphor that sometimes things will survive. Things will continue on. This tradition, this faith, even though the temple, the main center, was destroyed, the faith, the tradition continues on, maybe differently than what it was. It wasn't centrally located anymore, but in pockets here and there. And like everything else, these pockets might have differed from one another because of geography, because of the difference of the leaders that were there, giving a little different flavor to each synagogue. But the tradition still remained. The faith still remained. We read some of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the faith is stronger than ever. The Bible is written and is preserved over centuries. The disciples were interested in how this was going to happen. What's going to be the end? There's always a curiosity about, when something bad happens, call it apocalypse. What's the end times going to be like? How's it all going to end? When will it end? And Jesus doesn't much address it. He just says there's going to be turmoil. There's going to be fighting. There's going to be wars. There's going to be earthquakes, famine, you name it. There's always going to be that kind of thing. But don't focus on that right now. Focus on what I'm saying at the end is the birth pangs are just beginning. Go fetch. Go fetch. And the dog, you're telling your dog, go fetch. Go fetch. And what is the dog looking at? He's not looking at the ball, he's looking at your finger. No, it's over there. No, the end times. They're looking at the end times. No, the birth pangs. Looking at the beginning, the newness. That's what I want you to point you to. You're looking at the end times and how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen. You're looking at the finger. You're not looking at what I'm pointing to. The birth pangs. Those mothers that are in the hospital for 10 weeks on bed rest because they've got some troubles and things, and they've got gestational diabetes and whatever else. For 10 weeks on bed rest. How annoying that can be. How tough that can be. And then when the baby's born, it's all worth it. Nice baby boy or girl, and they happen to be healthy and strong, and soon those things, the new beginning, those pains and that tribulation for 10 weeks seems like nothing after a while. After years, you just don't think about it. You just think of this new baby that's born. This baby that's got a mind of its own. This baby that's got a personality of its own. We can say, look, and they look at our finger. We can guide them as much as we can, and we can kind of show them the way, and if sometimes they'll listen and sometimes they won't. And God is saying to the people of Israel, this is what I've got for you. I've got a new beginning for you. Keep alert. Don't worry about the end times. Worry about present times now. Living in the Spirit now. This is what I have for you. Something new. You don't even know what's going to happen. You just have to have trust and faith that what I will do and provide is something good. It may be very different than what you think or than what you expect or what you're used to. You're used to the temple being centrally located. That's not going to happen anymore. But just wait. Good things are going to happen. You will still be sustained in your faith. You have that baby, you may think, oh, I've got an engineer now. And they take off and they become a flautist in the concert band or something. Expectations may be very different. Of our congregation, the direction we feel we should be going, maybe the direction that Jesus or God has picked for us, it may be different than we expect, but at least we're living faithfully into the Word and going our direction that God leads us in. We live in a time where things are happening, don't we? It seems like it's more and more often. We have things happening. We've got Katrina, we've got Sandy, we've got the Twin Towers, we've got all kinds of things happening. And in our minds, in part of our minds, we're thinking God's punishment, God's something another happening for the people of this world. The earthquakes, the floods. God is obviously punishing us for all those things. And that's not different from what they were thinking back in Jesus' time. That cosmic struggle against good versus evil. And that what we do causes a shift in that struggle, and we get punished, we get devastation, we get famines, we get floods, we get conquered by other nations because of something we did wrong. And that's what we focus on, is what we did wrong and what we need to do to make it right. We live in a time where these kinds of devastations often bring out the best in people and the worst in people. You find people like going waist deep in water to help other people in a flood situation, or flying to a different country and offering assistance when it's necessary. When times of struggle come, we bond together, we forget our petty differences, and we know what we need to do and make it happen. On 9/11, people flooded the blood banks. They flooded the city. They flooded other places. They're in New York City now, helping as much as they can those Occupy Wall Street people with their sense of organization are now helping people, having shelter and food, and organizing groups to help other people. And yet there are respectable people out there looting and cheating and trying to get what they can, and it's a strange time. I, for one, like to focus on the hope, on the positive side of things. That when push comes to shove, we come together as a community. We are of this earth. We are creatures. We are bound to this earth. We focus on what we can do right now. We focus on each other. We focus on what really matters to us. Our loved ones, those people that we sometimes don't even know to go and help because we have a sense of compassion for other people. The stones will be knocked down. This sense of the Roman Empire will be destroyed. Thank goodness, right? Although the Roman government had some good things, they also had the flip side as well. Something new is going to happen. In our lives, something new is going to happen. We don't know. We don't know when. We focus on now. We focus on what we can do now. We focus on what God gives us now. And we have hope for the future, that our relationship with God will continue throughout our lives and into the next life and so on and so forth, because that bond has no reference to time. It continues on. And the promise is strong. It always has been strong that these things, new things will occur. The end of Revelation, the new Jerusalem, Jesus coming down to give us newness of life, a new creation, newness. Something we don't expect sometimes, or how we expect it to happen, but it does. We are people created in God's image. God has given us hope. The buildings will be destroyed, but newness will come through. That is God's promise. That's what Jesus is trying to tell his disciples. The newness comes, and God is there in the midst of it. Amen.